Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll be exploring the history of the Rockefeller family. A little over a year ago, David Rockefeller passed away. The centenarian was the very Rockefeller from the renowned Rockefeller family, having led it for the last half-century and serving as one of the main symbols of power and wealth. The Rockefeller family not only transformed its wealth into a tool for political influence, but also made it clear how to rule the world. These were not merely beautiful words. It was a business plan, and there were plenty of students. The Dulles brothers, the Gadinsky family, the Kennedys, all U.S. presidents and heads of major media. Nearly the entire establishment of the 20th century was under their influence. Secret agreements and shadow governments, the Bilderberg Group, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the ideas of globalization and a united Europe, all of this lay behind them. When you hear the phrase absolute evil, you think of death camps, gas chambers, and the millions of lives lost. It seems fitting to place Adolf Hitler in the Hall of Fame under the label of perfect villain. But this is only the case if you are unaware of David Rockefeller. On a warm August morning in 1923, 7-year-old David caught a large brown beetle in a meadow. The insect, with its fearsome jaws, tried to bite the boy, but the beetle didn't know whose hands it had fallen into. David was not afraid. He placed it in a jar, took it home, waited for it to die, and then pinned it with a needle. He enjoyed this process so much that it later became a lifelong hobby. One might expect such a love for nature from childhood, if not for the fact that Rockefeller described in his diaries in detail the type of gasoline or acetone he used and how long to wait for the insects to die for his collection. The passion for killing living beings would remain with him throughout his life, manifesting in all his thoughts and actions. The beloved grandson of the founder of the dynasty, John Rockefeller, David inherited not only a multi-billion-dollar fortune from his grandfather, but also the family ideology of the exceptionalism of the wealthy. Money is divine proof of the superiority of certain human beings. The master race must not allow ugly, poor beings to reproduce. It is not they who are born into poverty. Rather, poverty is born with them. This is what John Rockefeller wrote. This sweet old man offering advice to his press secretary was, of course, Grandpa Rockefeller. The growing grandson began to assist the young German politician Adolf Schicklgruber, who, with his amendments, began to implement the idea of a supernation. $11 billion were allocated to create a better world of superior people for Hitler from the Rockefeller Bank, J.P. Morgan. Moreover, specialists in eugenics were sent from the U.S. to assist. Hitler's defeat did not disturb Rockefeller at all. In the 1950s, David, along with scientists who had fled from Nazi Germany, turned an entire country, Puerto Rico, into his laboratory. By 1955, every third woman on the island had been sterilized. Sometimes peasant women were not informed about it, as sterilization was presented as a preventative measure for typical female diseases, but this was not enough for them. Rockefeller Institute doctors infected Puerto Ricans with cancer cells, and they were not distressed by the death of the subjects. Here's a diary entry from Dr. Cornelius Rouse. The Puerto Ricans are undoubtedly the dirtiest, laziest, and most dishonest race of people that have ever inhabited this area. What this island needs is not health care, but a tidal wave or something else to completely exterminate this population. I have made every effort to further the process of extermination, killing 8. This scandalous excerpt made it into the pages of Time magazine, and it seemed that these inhumane experiments would finally come to an end. However, the opposite occurred. Dr. Rouse was promoted to the Pentagon to develop biological weapons, while Puerto Ricans continued to die. How are they any better than beetles? David Rockefeller reasoned. If you can't buy a competitor, kill him, his grandfather instructed him. David Rockefeller understood this principle well, and as soon as the opportunity arose, he began to regularly visit the Soviet Union. This was labeled as cultural cooperation, but all heartfelt conversations with the country's top political leadership had only one goal. 10 years of meetings and discussions bore fruit in 1972. The first visit of a U.S. president to the USSR in history Nixon's meeting with Brezhnev, during which they signed an agreement on the reduction of offensive arms and limiting missile defense systems. There was also scientific and cultural technical exchange, known as détente, as historians would call this period. But no, this was business, David Rockefeller would have answered. Behind the loud political statements, no one noticed that the Rockefellers had gained access to the oil industry of the Soviet Union, that the USSR bought grain from America for $1 billion, and that, right in the heart of Moscow, the first office of the Rockefeller Bank, Chase, opened in 1973. The billionaire describes in his memoirs how grandly the opening of the first office was celebrated. In the Metropole Hotel, every communist official in Moscow was invited, and the tables overflowed with exotic delicacies and expensive alcohol. Party workers rushed like locusts, and within 2 minutes, not a crumb or drop was left. Rockefeller recalls how the wife of one of the invitees hid a piece of sausage in her handbag. Can one truly fear such pathetic people as enemies? The billionaire wondered as he sowed the seeds of democracy, which sprouted just 10 years later. On all his business trips, Rockefeller traveled with a special jar to collect the beetles he caught for his collection, and he also collected ruined countries. What a worthy hobby! David, a former intelligence officer, ensnared states with his network of foundations like a spider. Rockefeller's classmate Alan Dulles became the first director of the CIA, and until the new building was constructed for the agency, Dulles worked from Rockefeller's office. Is it necessary to mention the billionaire's influence on the special services? Here's a statement from Dear David. The government, for the sake of not profitable oil prices, experiences global crises and stock market crashes. Brazil wants to create an analog of the IMF together with Russia so you can declare impeachment and remove the head of state from office. Living profilers means being not only rich, but also in God mode. You execute and show mercy so that skyscrapers do not block the sun from your office. You call your brother, the governor, and he shifts the construction of the World Trade Center a few meters to the side. David Rockefeller created the closed Bilderberg Club, where candidates for the presidency of dozens of countries came for a look. They also established the Trilateral Commission, where the fate of America, Western Europe, and Asia is decided. However cynically it sounds, he was the chairman of the international group addressing peace and prosperity issues. In fact, this has been, is, and will be the main task of the Rockefeller clan, to instill unwavering love, fear, and submission in the planet's inhabitants towards the wealthy supermen. As long as the peoples of the earth, especially in Asia and Africa, do not agree to regulate birth rates and artificially reduce the population, the planet's future will remain in great doubt. The Rockefeller structure does not wait for approval. They are already methodically engaged in reducing the Earth's population. Sterility, deformity, and cancer are caused by genetically modified products that Rockefeller-funded companies are intensively spreading in India, Latin America, Europe, and even in the U.S. Over a century of Rockefeller rule, the philosophy of accumulation has become the primary global ideology. The best scientists, inventors, or educators do not wait on the list. Each year, the planet holds its breath for the list of the richest people in the world. Naive, ordinary people are led to believe that the late Rockefeller had only $3 billion and ranked 580th on the Forbes list. In reality, he left his heirs a printing press, the very one that churns out dollars around the clock. Although sometimes even the press is not needed. Money just appears digitally. You only need to press a button, add $1 billion. At the funeral of the century-old billionaire who extended his life until the last moment by receiving donor hearts and kidneys, many good and warm words were spoken. The media, controlled by the Rockefellers, eagerly reported on the philanthropy and charity of the deceased, emphasizing how fortunate we all were to be born on the same planet as David Rockefeller. Historians recorded absolute villains such as Hitler, Saddam Hussein, and Omar Gaddafi, all identified as the main sociopaths of the planet, but not them. After all, they were generously compensated for many years in advance. All this is no longer a secret. Books have been written on this topic, but they will never be mass printed. First of all, they are published in minimal print runs. Secondly, these are not the topics that ordinary mortals are allowed to contemplate. And thirdly, it's rather tedious to read about them and not that easy to understand. William Engdahl, Anthony Sutton, very few have heard these names and similar researchers. An ordinary person has no time. He should watch the next Hollywood blockbuster featuring a hero with superpowers who will resolve everything for him and save the entire Earth's population in bulk. The main cannibals of the Earth also possess superpowers, the printing press and global power, and they decide everything for us, or is there still a corridor of possibilities for us? And what ways can we find to escape the control of backstage puppeteers? Today, the same method of extermination is utilized as a century ago. Electronic technology, which now allows far more precise control than ever before. The experiment continues, and the extermination is going on all over the earth. You should stop worrying about the outcome. You'll live well in peace and harmony if you just get into the boat without looking back, ensuring that no one notices your departure. The politicians will keep raising taxes, and the press will continue to maintain that a full tank of gas is a blessing. It's a good life, yes. The perfect conditions for the supermen are constantly created, and every day is filled with a genuine fight against social justice. So don't miss the next episode, like my video, and subscribe my channel. Goodbye for now. For a